Have you ever woken up from a dream and just had that moment of, wait, what was that? We all have it, right? This completely wild private movie theater that just switches on in our heads every single night. But what is actually going on in there? Well, let's dive in and see what science has to say about it.
So, picture this. You're dreaming that you're back in school, and there's a big test you totally forgot to study for. You can feel the panic, right? But then, the door creaks open, and in walks your grandma, dressed as a firefighter. She immediately starts wrestling an alligator. The classroom is total chaos, and your only option is to leap out the window where you land perfectly in a go-kart from Mario Kart. It's completely absurd, totally illogical, and yet it sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Welcome to the wild, wild world of dreams.
And get this, think about just how much time we spend in that bizarre world. It might feel like it's just a few minutes here and there, but if you add it all up over an average lifetime, you will spend about 6 full years of your life dreaming. 6 years. That's a huge chunk of our existence spent in another reality.
So, for something we do for 6 years of our lives, it's still a massive mystery to most of us. What we're going to do now is take a little journey into that bizarre inner universe. We're going to try to understand where these strange stories come from and, why our brain even bothers to create them in the first place. Okay, so long before we had brain scans or any scientific tools, people were already obsessed with dreams. And the first real attempts to figure them out, they weren't about biology, they were all about spirituality. The most common belief was that dreams were messages, coming from somewhere else entirely. And this idea goes way, way back. I'm talking more than 4,000 years ago. You had a Sumerian king who said a dream told him exactly how to rebuild a temple. Then you had the ancient Egyptians, where priests would literally go to sleep in special temples, hoping the gods would slide into their DMs, dream style. And of course, the Greeks believed the god Morpheus was like a celestial delivery guy dropping off messages from Mount Olympus right into their heads.
And you see this idea pretty much woven into every major faith. In Hinduism, dreams are seen as one of the soul states of being. In Judaism, there was this idea that good dreams were from God, but the bad ones, those were from evil spirits. And in Islam, dreams are categorized into different types: true, false, or just mundane. The key takeaway here is that no matter the culture, our ancestors were all looking at the same weird nightly experiences and trying to make sense of them.
But then, everything changed. Our quest for answers took a huge turn, shifting away from the mystical and toward the mechanical. We started asking totally new questions. Not just, what do dreams mean, but how do they even work? And that, right there, is when science steps into the dream.
This brings us to the actual field of study that's all about dreams. It's called oniology. It's basically the science of dreams, and it looks at everything from what's physically happening in your brain to how dreams are tied to making memories, handling emotions, and even our mental health. Now, the early psychologists had a couple of very different big ideas. Back in the 19th century, a guy named W.R. Roberts suggested that dreams were basically our brain's janitor. A nightly cleanup crew that just deletes all the useless junk we saw and heard during the day. But then, of course, you've got Sigmund Freud, who had a much spicier take. He famously argued dreams were the guardians of sleep, a safe space for us to play out all our deep, hidden desires. But to really figure out what's going on, you need data, a lot of data. And that's where a psychologist named Calvin Hall comes into the picture. Over 4 decades, this guy undertook a massive project. He collected and analyzed, wait for it, 50,000 dream reports from people all around the globe. 50,000?
And what he found was absolutely fascinating, especially when it came to emotions. So what do you think is the #1 feeling we have in our dreams? Is it happiness? Wonder? Nope. Overwhelmingly, it's anxiety. It turns out that across every culture, we are far more likely to feel scared or angry in our dreams than joyful.
So where do all these different dreams come from? Well, neurologists have found that our brains basically have 2 different dream factories. During non-REM sleep, your brain is like a neat filing cabinet. It's organizing the files from your day, which leads to shorter, more normal, kind of boring dreams. But then you hit REM sleep, rapid eye movement, and your brain starts cleaning out the junk drawer. That's when you get those long, wild, completely illogical dreams. It's just mixing up old memories with random bits and pieces. One is for organizing, the other is for decload.
Okay, so this all leads to a really mind-blowing question. If dreams are just our brains processing information, could we influence them?
Could we actually step in and, guide what we dream about? Well, the answer seems to be yes.
This whole practice is called dream incubation. It's a pretty simple idea. You just focus on a specific problem or a question right as you're falling asleep, basically hoping your dreaming brain will work on it for you. And what's so cool is that this ancient practice, the same kind of thing those Egyptian priests were doing, is now being proven to work by modern science.
And hey, you can totally try this yourself. Harvard psychologist Dr. Deirdre Barrett lays out some really simple steps. First, just think about your problem right before bed. Really focus. Second, if an image pops into your head, hold on to that as you drift off. Now, the next two steps are super important. When you wake up, don't move. Just stay still. And then, just ask yourself, what was I just dreaming? Let any little image or feeling float back to you.
So, does this stuff actually work? Well, history is filled with some pretty incredible examples. The entire story of Frankenstein came to Mary Shelley in a dream. Paul McCartney literally woke up one morning with the complete melody for Yesterday in his head. Even massive scientific discoveries, like the structure of the periodic table and the model of the atom, first came to their creators in a dream. It's wild.
And of course, technology is now getting it on the action. In 2020, scientists at MIT built this device called Dormio. It's basically a wearable gadget that figures out when you're in the right stage of sleep, and then it plays specific audio cues to try and insert ideas right into your dreams. I mean, the whole sci-fi idea of hacking dreams is becoming science fact right now.
But influencing a dream is one thing. What about the final frontier? What if you could have a real, two-way conversation with someone while they are in the middle of a dream?
Well, in 2021, a team of researchers from around the world actually did it. They got a group of lucid dreamers, people who know when they're dreaming, and while they were fast asleep in a lab, scientists started asking them questions. Simple things like basic math or yes or no questions. And the sleeping volunteers? They heard the questions inside their dream and answered in real time using prearranged eye and finger movements.
So, how well did it work? The dreamers gave correct answers about 18% of the time. Now, I know what you're thinking. 18% doesn't sound very high, but hang on. That number isn't the point. The point is that it worked at all. This is the first real proof that two-way communication with a dreaming person is even possible. The door has just been cracked open to a whole new world of research.
So, from divine messages to a new frontier of the human mind, our understanding of dreams has come such a long way. And it really just leaves us with one final thought. You have this incredibly powerful, creative supercomputer that runs for hours and hours every single night. So the only question left is, what problem are you going to take into your dreams tonight?